Hey, everybody, this is Gail Craft, and welcome to the Empowering Process podcast. Today, we're going to listen to my conversation with Chris Felton of Chris Felton Public Figure. You're going to love this, man. You're going to love this conversation. We're calling this the Come To Marlo Meeting because this is a story of a man who hid his financial situation that was horrific until he finally fessed up to his wife, and how they together got themselves out of a ridiculous debt into a life of prosperity, and how he shares his philosophy of you don't need to love it, but you got to stop hating it. Join me as I have this great conversation with Chris Felton.
You're listening to the Empowering Process podcast with your host, Gail Craft. Listen as she holds frank discussions around how your purpose, being present, and trusting your power impacts your life. Whether you're an entrepreneur, leader, or developing your vision, you'll find wisdom and insights you can utilize right now. Welcome your host, Gail Craft.
Well, hello, everybody. Gail Craft here from the Empowering Process podcast. And I have with me always a special guest, you know that, and it's Chris Felton. Chris, welcome. Thank you for coming and joining me today.
Gail, I'm so excited to be here.
It's
We're
going to
going
be so
to
much
help a
fun.
lot of people and have a blast doing it. Yep, I'm with you.
For sure. So Chris and I were talking, and one of the things that we have, lots of things we have in common, but one thing that we have in common is our wake-up call, our wake-up moment. And you may have heard the story from me before, so I won't go into the story, but I will go into the moment and let Chris tell his story. My moment was when I looked into the mirror and said, "Ooh, I don't like you. I'm surprised you have any friends, because if I don't like me, how can anyone else like me?" And the thing is, the common denominator in my successes and in my failures has been me. And so I need to take control and figure that crap out. And Chris, you have quite the story yourself of like losing it all. And I was at the moment, like I was homeless at that point.
Wow.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
You were there too, pretty much.
Yeah. No, I had a divorce after a few years, and my kids were very little. They were 3 years old and 1 month old, and they moved from Colorado to Atlanta with their mom. And then I met my second, current, and last wife. She seduced me, and she can't defend herself. So there we have it. But anyway, she was awesome. And so I'm a financial services entrepreneur. Divorce was it wasn't I didn't fight, pretty much laid down in it. Ended up she got half my business. I had to pay her $5,200 at the beginning of every month. I signed a 6,000 square foot office lease I couldn't afford. We're ending the Great Recession, and you and I were just having a great conversation about intuition and acting on it versus fighting it. So Marlo, my current second and last wife, sees a guy that talks about success. I kind of buffaloed her. She did not know that I was $250,000 in credit card debt. She did not know that I had all this going on. And we get married, and she's like, "Well, hey, I want to help manage the money of the house." And I'm like, "Well, no, I got it, because I'm a financial advisor. My background is a CPA. I got it.
Right. And I don't want you to see all the shit that's under
yeah, I don't want you to see my shit. So we're living in this house in central Denver. It's like February. The windows are from like the 50s. It's this concrete house. It's freezing. It's small. And I'm kind of at my wit's end. And I'm like, "Well, hey, I think, to change your life, you need to go meditate." So I went out in the garage in a ski parka in the middle of February, and I'm sitting there freezing my ass off, meditating. And the voice of God came in and was like, "Let her do it."
Yeah.
Let her do it. And I didn't understand this. Mel Robbins came out with her 5-second rule stuff, shortly thereafter. But something got me to get my butt up out of the car to walk in. and single best financial decision I ever made in my life. But I said, hey, honey, it's all you. Take it over. And then about 10 days later, I'm in the kitchen, and I could just feel this presence of my wife. And I look up and she's got bank statements and checkbooks, and she's got this look on her face like, what did you do? Right. And she's just like, hey, what'd you do? And oh my God, like it was like you're borrowing to stay afloat. Like she's like, we need to meet. So we had the Come To Marlo meeting, and she introduced a 4-letter word called a budget. And and I didn't get it. Right. And one of my favorite quotes is optimism and delusion sleep in the same bed together. Right. And we as
I love that.
humans can get massively delusional. So I was like, yeah, it's okay. Don't look over here. Look over here. I got all this greatness coming, and one day it's going to turn around. So fast forward about 6 months after that, we had to get rid of that house and we had to rent. It's getting worse. And I was at my end of my rope. I was out of places to borrow. I stopped doing the things that created my initial success. I was giving pretty speeches and pointing to people to do things, and I wasn't leading by example. And I had to make that $5,200 alimony child support payment the next day. I was out of money. So I had to come home and somehow convince my wife, who was good with money, and she had money separate from our marriage because she was smart enough not to commingle money with a broke dude.
I love your wife.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You'd love her. And anyway, I've always loved her, but right at this moment, I didn't like her. So but she had this money set aside. She's going to go buy some suits from Ann Taylor. Right. Like it's like, she had this thing, and I had to come home and say, hey, I got to make this payment. Like, need your money, honey. And shit didn't go over well. And I turn around and her purse flies over my head. So she got so pissed. What kind of woman throws her purse?
Right.
A very pissed off woman. And she threw her purse. Tasmania devil, Marlo's not the greatest thing on the planet. She picked it up and threw it again, picked it up and threw it again. We're in the fight of our lives. And I'm like, well, so bad. Why are you here? Why are we still married? So total silence. She went upstairs to go figure that out. And then that was the mirror moment for you. That was my moment. And I was like alone with my thoughts, and all I could see, Gail, were just dominoes falling. And I went back to my first marriage, and I realized, that thing failed because I expected it to fail.
Yeah. And
one of my favorite quotes is, you don't get what you hope for, you get what you expect. I expected it to fail. I hadn't seen my kids in months. Where's dad's turning into who's dad? I'm drinking a ton. The financial stress is physically impacting my wife. I'm a mess. And then that was it. I was like, dude, you're the common denominator to all this. And I had to quit living in hopium.
Yeah.
Right. Hoping the outside world will change while I fiercely insist on remaining the same. Manipulating the circumstances in my life. It's freaking exhausting. Call that rearranging the furniture on the deck of the Titanic. Right?
I love your metaphors.
Yeah, doesn't matter what you do with that deck furniture, that damn boat's going down.
Right.
And that was it. That was the first time I said, all right, dude, you need to take 100% responsibility. It is no longer your ex-wife's fault. It's not the economy's fault. It's not your wife's fault. It's not the team's fault. It is you. And so grateful that, my wife and I came back together the next day. And in her contemplation of should I stay or should I go, she was like, she focused on the good stuff in me and said, I can't live without those things. And what that did, Gail, is that broke my self-sabotaging relationship pattern where I'd hit a bump in the road with somebody. I'd start focusing on the negative, and then I would start dreaming of the sunshine lollipop, and Rose's unicorn relationship that exists out there somewhere that requires no work. And it's always just bliss, total BS.
Sure.
So that got me to focus on the positive in her. And she said, hey, we're not getting divorced. We're not declaring bankruptcy. We're not getting jobs. We are going to figure this out. So we had access to wealthy mentors, and she's like, and they had wealth in all areas of their life, not just money.
Right.
And she's like, I'm going to interview them. Our first book, Couples Money, came from that. But she's like, I'm going to interview them and see what they think and do. And then she was kind of like, what are you going to do? I'm like, I'm going to figure out how this keeps creating this.
How your
And
head keeps creating
yeah,
push.
yeah,
Yep.
how my mentality kept creating disasters. Because how could a CPA and financial advisor be totally broke? And she's like, and I said, I'm not interested in changing. I'm committed. And she said, what do you mean? I'm like, well, interested, as you know, Gail, most people are interested in a great life, and social media has exacerbated it. The belief that you can actually get something for nothing is one of the biggest freaking lies on the planet.
It's
And
insane.
and when people are interested, they hit a roadblock. They take what I call chicken exit. They go to the next thing, go to the next thing, go to the next thing, but they keep taking their old selves to the new thing, getting the same result. And I just said, I'm committed. And she said, what does that mean? I'm like, you know how an Olympic athlete treats their sport? They're all in. I'm like, I'm all in. And she's like, what does that look like? I'm like, I'm getting up at 4:30 in the morning, read, journal, visualize, image. I'm going to pull out every limiting belief I can, look at it and release it and change it. And if you would have told me to stand on my head for an hour, I would have done it. It didn't happen overnight, but it happened over time. And we experienced a jaw-dropping transformation financially. But for me personally, I had a spiritual transformation. I'm 52. I feel better at 52 than I did at 42. Relationships. I mean, everything changed. And
It really
I'm grateful.
does.
I'm grateful.
I always say that if you're really on, and I'm doing air quotes here, personal development journey,
Yeah.
there's no way you can do that without getting into a spiritual journey,
Yeah.
because that's who you are.
Yep.
Right. I was
Absolutely.
chatting with a friend of mine just yesterday, and I told him, I said, I have to tell you that I laid down in bed last week almost in tears and said, I want a relationship with you, talking to the universe. I don't want to just hear from you. I want to communicate with you. I want to chit chat with you. I want to hang out with you. Right. I want you beside me when I'm cooking dinner. I want to have a heartfelt relationship with you. And I realize that I am God. And so I'm asking to have a relationship with myself.
Yep. Yeah.
You know, and it's true. A lot of us don't even think about that.
Yeah. No. Yeah. It's one and the same for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one and the same. And
Yeah.
so your first step towards releasing resistance was handing over the checkbook. And then what typically happens with ego goes, okay, I'll let you do this. And then you do it. And then the ego goes, fuck. Right. And starts pulling back. Right. But your wife didn't throw in the towel. She stuck with you. And that helped you. It kind of gave you the foundation to say, well, I'm not throwing in the towel either. We're going to fix this.
Yeah.
What an amazing woman.
Yeah. No, we'd be nowhere without her. No,
Yeah.
I mean, it would. Yeah.
Yeah.
If she would have, she could have kicked me to the curb. Probably should have kicked me to the curb. I mean, in hindsight, she would have, just looking back, like, I was a mess. But yeah, no, she hung in there, right? So it's called the law of growth, right? It's
Right.
the preeminent law, and whatever you want to call it, metaphysical personal growth and development. What you
Right.
focus on expands, and all teaching points to that. So I always ask everybody, like, my life's not working or this or that. I'm like, okay, the ultimate focus and question is, what am I focused on, and what must this be creating?
It's really interesting because many of us, before we face ourselves, and it's called taking accountability, taking responsibility, and not bullshitting yourself. You don't have to tell anyone what's going on. But when you look at yourself, are you telling yourself the truth? And I will tell you, for me, so I'm not going to talk about anyone else, but for me, for most of my life, I was even hiding from myself. Right? It's like you said, this will be okay. Don't look over here, look over there. Right? Pretend, throw it under the rug. Right? It's not really here. And I was raised with hearing things like, one day my ship will come in. And I would be like, what ship? Right? Do we sit on the dock and hang our feet and wait for a ship to come in? I don't know. What ship are you talking about? Or the dream is. And I remember after going through this transformation, starting the transformation, that came up. The dream is for me. And the member of my family who would say that many times, I said, a dream not acted on is a nightmare. And you can dream all you want, but if you're not taking action on that dream, it's never going to happen. Right? And so this is where, yes, personal development, meditation, like we were talking earlier, you get a message, act on it. Right? Go, okay, this makes sense. I'm going to move in that direction. And so what were some of the actions that you took in your transformational journey?
Yeah, I mean, first it was, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Good. First it was, and it's the most beat up topic in personal development. And it is, what do you want?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so lots of people, I mean, I had world-class mentoring. I mean, this whole process, right? And I would listen to these amazing people and they're like, got to know what you want, got to get clear, got to know your why. Right. I would write the notes down and then I would like walk out of a conference and then like a squirrel would run by me and I'd be like, oh, let me go catch that squirrel. and then and then I'll get my shit together. Once, right. Let me go catch that. Yeah. Hold on, clarity. Yeah. Anyway. And I was in a training, and it was 4 of the legends of my company, and they're at the front of the room, and they're talking about, the how-tos, and this is how you do it. And then this guy who was supposed to be part of the training, but he was Canadian, and he was sick, which is Canadian for hungover. He was late to the meeting, and he walks in, and it's like 50 people, 50 up and coming people, and then our 4 like legends, and they're going into all the making of the sausage, and he stops the meeting, and he's like, "What are you talking about? None of this shit's important." And he's like, "The reason I kick all your asses is from the day I've been here, I've known where I am and I know where I'm going. And I know why. And I can communicate in under 90 seconds. I'm clear. I'm certain. You're not. I'll keep kicking your ass." And then he left. These were years after kind of the struggle thing, but when, so after the next day, I just used that story of like, a lot of people hear that and they're like, oh, yeah, I gotta get clear. Yeah. And then the squirrel, or whatever you want to call it, right? I call it woo busy, right? You ask people, how are you? And like, oh, Chris, oh my God, I'm so busy. I'm so woo busy. Right. And one of my mentors a long time ago, he said, let's just stop saying that. You'll never get me to say I'm busy ever.
I'm not busy.
Because I'm sending out the message to God, the universe, whatever you believe in. Don't send me anymore. My plate's full. But that was me. And so my wife and I sat down the next day and we got clear. Like, we sat down and I'm like, what do you want? I'm like, we're $250,000 in debt. Like, we're at base camp looking up at Mount Everest. I'm like, what do you want? She's like, well, all these people we've been talking to, we have to be able to save money or we're never going to be debt free. So we got to focus on creating wealth, not fixing debt.
Yes.
Right. Which was ginormous. Because fixing debt never just right. The law of growth created more debt. Joe Dispenza calls it a negative feedback loop. Like, that's where my focus is. But creating wealth was freeing. And I said, what do you want? And she's like, I want $100,000 saved. And so my left brain CPA normally would be like, oh, goody, let's make a spreadsheet and map it out and, get into all the details. But I knew it had to be different. And I said, why? And we spent an hour on why. Why did it matter? And she just said, look at me. Like the stress. I need security.
Right.
I need to feel secure. She's like, what's your why? And I'm like, I don't want to fight with you around money ever again as long as I live. I'm like, I have to see my kids. Like, I have to be a good dad. I think this is getting handed to us because we're going to go teach millions of people how to overcome financial limitation, right? Which has happened, thank God. And then we identified the feeling that we wanted to experience, because everything we do in life, we're hoping to obtain a feeling. And it was relief. We wanted financial relief like oxygen. And so we spent time there. And then we got our financial GPS system figured out, right? We defined point A, which was ugly. But my coach taught me acceptance. And I said, acceptance? That sounds stupid. It sounds like I'm giving up. He's like, no.
You're releasing resistance.
Yeah, releasing resistance, right? And resistance is what is happening should not be happening, which is where everybody lives. He said, no, acceptance is you don't need to love it, but you have to stop hating it.
Right.
And the analogy I always give with that is a flat tire, right? We get a flat tire and we go, oh, shit. Damn it. That shouldn't have happened. Whose fault is that? What's this? What's that? Da 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 da. Right. And you go through all these mental gymnastics and resistance of what is happening shouldn't be happening until you get to the point where it's like, huh. And the flat tire's sitting there going, Chris, don't give a rat's ass what you're thinking. Right. And so he really taught me acceptance, and he taught me, man, stop beating yourself up, forgive yourself. It's all good. Right. You're on the path. And, with the flat tire, at some point, you got to be like, okay, accept. And then I can fix the flat tire being pissed off. I don't need to love it, but I need to stop hating. I can at least make it a peaceful pursuit and get it done quicker. And then he was just like, dude, your only questions are, what do I want? What's the next thing I need to do? What do I want? What's the next thing I need to do? What do I want? What's the next thing I need to do? So we looked at the bloody balance sheet. We looked at, the income statement. I mean, it was freaking nasty. But I looked at it, I accepted it, and I looked her in the eye and I said, we will never be back here again. I always get emotional on that. I felt that in my bones.
Right.
And that's, people are like, a decision. What is a decision? That is it. It was committed. And so we just said, okay, base camp, Mount Everest, 100,000 seemed like $1 billion to me at that time. And we're just like, no, let's go. Just one foot in front of the other. And we held a meeting every week, and it was all centered around that goal. And did we move a dollar further away? And then we started changing our relationship with money, or mainly me. She was set there. She was fine. But yeah, she was fine. But money's a relationship. And it's either functional or dysfunctional based on what's going on with your bank account. But I had to really clean it up, and it wasn't a love of, but it was a healthy respect. And so it was really dying the death of 1,000 financial cuts. And I was reading T. Harv Eker's book, Secrets of a Millionaire Mind.
Yeah.
And he said, until you start managing the money that you have now, you won't see anymore.
Right. You have to prove that you can manage what you've got.
Yeah. You can't be blessed with bigger things till you start getting handled, small things. So the budget was okay, but it was my eating out habit, my happy hour habit, like all this stupid shit of my ego going, oh, you had a bad day, go have a drink. Oh, you had a good day, go celebrate. Like all that, right? All that crap. And,
yep.
and But because we set the goal, and goal setting is not logical, it's emotional. High performers know that. And we spent time on the why. My awareness was just at a whole nother level, Gail. Like, you could not get me to blow $1 because it was moving us further away. We took a
So
cash diet for not. Go ahead.
let's stop here about because
Sure.
it's really
Sure.
important what you're talking about. Really, really important, and about submodalities that we have in our brain. Your submodality was you were moving away from. And I, sorry, Oprah, you're the perfect example for this. Moving away from being heavy. Submodality of moving away from, instead of moving towards, creating wealth is moving towards. Moving away from debt is moving away from. So you go up the scale and you're moving away from. And this is like, cool, look at this. I'm really moving away from. This is awesome. And then your subconscious says, oh, I'm getting too far away. We can't move away from if I'm not there. So we need to get back down to being broke so that we can continue moving away from. Right. So that's her roller coaster ride with weight, because she's moving away from being heavy rather than moving towards making healthy choices every day that she eats.
Yep.
And so it's in that you're shifting your submodality is hard. It's really hard.
Yeah.
But it's doable. That is congratulations.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was the, my coach is like, all right, man, like, so your morning routine. I mean, everyone always talks about that, but just that, because discouragements, it's a dream stealer, right? Discouragement's a dream stealer, and people get discouraged, and it's easy to get discouraged. And that morning shift, I can still wake up. I mean, 2 days ago, I woke up and I was freaking discouraged. I made some big transitions in my life, and my ego's not my amigo, right? And so it's that woke up, I'm like discouraged. I'm like, well, I'm not leaving the house like freaking Pigpen and Peanuts, right? I need to shift, and I need to shift to encouragement, whatever that is for you. But back then it was like, yeah, I mean, I woke up, it was discouraged, it was fear, I was moving away from, but all that. But I had to take responsibility for my thinking. I had to lead my thinking. And I also got obsessed, and I talk about it in my book. I got obsessed with, I can't control my thoughts. And I wanted to have a peaceful life. If I want to have a peaceful life, I have to have a peaceful mind. And so part of that, that shifting was, okay, I got to spend my hour or so, my 60,000 foot level of all the things I do in the morning to shift. But, often, lots of times, Gail, people are personal development zombies, right? And they just take on information like, oh, I'm listening to 4,000 podcasts. I mean, I got a lady across the hall. She's like, I read all these books. And I'm like, man, I
but
might
they
stay
integrate nothing.
Yeah. I'm like, my superpower is I might read the same page for 30 days because I'm like, shit, man, that's
Right.
a shifter. That's a shifter. But, and then they wait to be fixed. And then I'm like, no, I got to go. My coach is like, dude, go see your life at the 60,000 foot level. Go see it, feeling that financial freedom. But you got to put that shit away, and you got to execute at the 5 foot level, whether you feel like you're ready or not.
Right.
And so executing on the plan, rebuilding my confidence. How do you do that? Keeping your word to yourself.
Yes.
Right. And then just moving. Right. And we didn't feel great once we hit that goal, and we've been blessed to blow way past that. But the dopamine hits come from, I'm on the right path. I'm making progress. That's the great feeling. Keeping the promises.
We are emotional beings. We think we're thinkers, but thinking and words are just a translation of an emotion and a picture we create from that emotion. Right. So the emotion is first. Emotion, emitting motion. Have you ever read David Hawkins' Energy versus Force? That's
Power,
right. That
power versus force.
power versus force. Yes.
I literally just pulled it out because I'm in this huge transition, and it's not very popular. And I'm getting, people operating at the 175 pride, pounding at me. And I'm like, all right, dude, you got to stay above, stay above 175, right? Stay in power. Don't stay in force. But no, it's funny you said that, because I literally pulled it out for the first time, probably 15 years.
Yeah.
And
I
I
pulled it
started
out just the other day. Yeah.
yeah, I just started ripping through and taking notes on it. And I was just like, holy shit, dude, you guys stay up here. Don't get sucked down. And anyway, whatever, but go ahead. Sorry. Yeah, I love that book.
Yeah. I was talking with a friend the other day, and he's like, they're telling me you're 845. I'm like, that's about right. He goes, that's freaking God force. I said, that's about right. Right. Because I no longer feel the pain. I recognize the pain. Right. I mean, what I'm going through, which we talked about earlier, I recognize the pain, but I don't feel that.
Mm.
I feel elation all the time. I see and feel possibilities. Right. And it's not Pollyanna crap either.
No.
Right. It's like, you still have to do the work. You still have to go through. We live in the third dimension. We still have to go through this stuff to get to the other side. There's still time and space that we have to work through. But man, the glory of doing that work from a knowing position is just, and I know that this is probably too woo-woo for some people, so I'll bring it back down. Right. But I've been pushing that book for some reason for a long, long time. Every time, I mean, I read it years ago, like you said, and it is one of two books that I will never get rid of, because I'm like, yes, what did David say about that? Right. It's an amazing, amazing work, and it's scientifically proven. It's not woo at all.
Nope, not at all.
Energy is measurable and it's real.
Yep.
Yeah. And so and the thing is as you go energetically up, and it's not that we're like always happy. It's like, but we recognize I change in a nanosecond. I get triggered nanosecond. It's over. It's like, oh, look at what just happened. Look what I'm feeling. Oh, well, that's ridiculous. Okay, let it go. Right.
Yep. Yeah.
When you're with someone under 200, they don't even understand you, Chris.
Yeah.
You cannot communicate to someone who's not energetically aware. And it's not a blame. It's not who's better or who's not. It's just that's just where they are. And I know I was there at that, the time that we were looking in the mirror. I'm telling you, I was below 175.
Oh yeah.
I was in shame and guilt, man. That's the bottom.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So so what is next for you? Where do you see yourself going? And if you're anything like me, I can tell you about today, but tomorrow might be different.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm in a huge business transition, leaving the firm I was with for 24 years. And so that's so I'm in the middle of that, but using the tools to move on that, but excited and have a vision and have an image. And then I wrote my book in February, Think and Grow You, how to get out of your own way and level up your life. So that speaking and coaching, and just the problem that book solves is stuck. And so that book is just literally it's kind of my 50 personal development stories. So I got coached by a guy named Steve Siebold, who's a legend in the personal development space, and coached me for 18 months while I wrote that book. But he said, hey, my books, if I had to go back and write them, he sold several million of them, but he's like, I would have put my personal story behind what I was teaching. So that's sort of what the book is about. Is it's 200 to 300 words of a teaching that probably everybody's heard of, but then there's a quote, a resource that I used to shift, an action step that I took, and then it's my personal story, which always has a formula of I was a fuck up, I woke up to it, I changed. I quit being a
Right.
victim, and I got these results. And so it's, so I talk about money, my relationship with my ex-wife, which is freaking exceptional today. Um, accepting my kids being raised by another guy, and how I literally let go of that in 15 minutes. Um, and the harmony that's been created with all that. My kids are 22 and 19. They're just freaking amazing kids. But
Yeah.
so my book makes my wife, my ex-wife, and her husband heroes, and then and then and then I'm the hero, as far as just getting because it's how to get out of your own way, right? It was just getting out of my own way and forgiving her, changing my relationship with money, my spirituality. I dive into business. I talk about judgment. I talk about approval addiction. I talk about, just all the ways I was stuck and hung up. And so I wrote it to, have people use it as a resource. Just like, oh my God,
Chris, that will be my next book for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's,
Sure.
the feedback's been good because Steve's like, how would you write this? And I'm like, I would have written it the way anybody else would have written. He's like, well, I've done 3,000 book signings, and people love my books because they're simple. So 200 to 300 words of a teaching and then a 400-word story, people can literally,
They need to
get through.
relate.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
need to relate. Yeah.
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 And when I was, so he read every word. He spent 25 hours on the fourth draft. He's like, we can't have a word out of place. It's got to flow. But as I started throwing out the stories, and really everything's about me throwing out my dirty laundry, he's like, holy shit. He's like, you sure you want to say all that? And I'm like, hey, dude, here's the goal. If my book sucks, I want my 2 kids to read it.
Yeah.
And just go, wow.
Yeah.
And my youngest, I don't know if he's gotten through it yet. My wife hasn't even read it. It's so funny. That shit funny. She's like, I get it. I know. I was there. I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
like, you might want to
No,
fucking read it.
no,
Anyway.
you want to know how I feel about it. You want to know how I communicate about it.
Yeah. No,
Right.
it's funny. But my 22-year-old, like, he's like, Dad, holy shit. Like, I never knew that was going on, man. Like, oh my God,
Of course not.
it was phenomenal, Dad. So
No.
anyway, so I'm, that's my manifesto. And so yeah, so there's some great speaking and stuff I'm doing with it. And I know that's part of my goal, to help millions of people have a better life.
So this is where you're changing your business and changing your focus and changing your strategy.
No, I'm in the financial services business. But just a new opportunity showed up that's energetically aligned for me, and a little bit of a startup. And
Oh, cool.
no, it's really cool. The vibe is great. We have this thing called the campfire test. If we wouldn't allow you in the campfire, we will not allow you into our company.
Oh.
So we're creating a super cool culture, and it's high energy, very loving, and all that. And we got some big goals and some short timelines. And so yeah, but I'm still doing the other stuff with it, and I've done, I don't know, 80 podcasts year to date. So still love doing this stuff to get the message out that hopefully helps people. Yep.
So if people do want to get in touch with you, how would they do that, Chris?
ChrisFelton.me. That's the website. You can send me a message through that. Keynote speaking, workshops. I got my free 4-day training, how to level up your life. People can take that and get kind of a taste of what I do. And I got my online workshop and all good stuff. And I'm all over social media, so they can connect with me there.
Perfect. Excellent. And I'll have all of that stuff in the show notes. And thank you so much. This is, I have a billion questions, like, no, we will go on forever. But this is Gail Kraft from the Empowering Process podcast. Thank you for joining us today. If this interested you, and if there's a question you have, please do put it in the notes so that we can get back to you. Give us a thumbs up if you like it, so we know that you like it. If you know someone who could benefit from this, absolutely share it out to them. And as always, I encourage you to subscribe so you know when the next episode is available. Thank you so much, Chris. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thanks, Gail.
Thank you for listening to the Empowering Process podcast. Be sure to visit Gail at gailcraft.com to learn more about how she serves thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and goal seekers. And remember, if you like this broadcast, be sure to share and subscribe so you don't miss an episode.